Welcome back to Speak for Yourself. Jason Whitlock, Marcellus Wiley, Speak for Yourself, brought to you by Hyundai. All right, let's go to the phone lines. LeVar Arrington is there. LeVar, you just heard us go over Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, and who won the split and the father-son relationship. You have a take on what you just heard.
Oh, man. Well, I tend to agree with Marcellus on this one. I think taking a look at the way things kind of came apart or unraveled, I think Tom Brady is in the better scenario to say, okay, if you want me to prove that I can do it as an adult dad, leave the nest, then that's what I'll do. It sets a great stage. I mean, obviously Tampa Bay had a rough year last season for one reason or another, but they have a ton of weapons, and it puts Tom Brady in an opportunity to actually prove.
All right,
that,
well, let's get to our big story of the day.
Yeah.
Cam Newton is being kicked out of Carolina, and Teddy Bridgewater is the new guy in Carolina. And I'm sorry, and Jameis Winston has been kicked out of Tampa Bay. Who has a better upside, a brighter future in 2020, Cam Newton or Jameis Winston?
I think Jameis. And the reason why I think Jameis is because if you look at his stats, he's got great stats. I mean, he broke 5,000 yards passing. Now, we've never seen Cam even do more than 5,000 yards. So you get him in a great situation. I think he could possibly end up in New England. I think Jameis has a better opportunity to have more success than the health questions. Don't know about his Cam's health yet.
Now, for me, it's Cam Newton. Look, it's not that hard to throw for 5,000 yards if you're Jameis Winston, if you don't care who catches it. You know, whether it's your color or the other team, you just throw the ball up and it's 3 flies up. Let's be real about this. We all know about mind over matter, and in this situation, it's mind versus matter. It's the mind of Jameis Winston, who has never given you full confidence that he sees the football field correctly, or more importantly, makes the right decisions based on what he sees. His mind is an issue, whereas the matter of Cam Newton is his body. And no one can predict the future in terms of, is Cam going to be healthy? But we certainly can predict that Jameis Winston will not see the football field correctly and go out there and turn the ball over. If you look at some of his numbers, insane in terms of he's only started 3 full seasons. And in those 48 games, he threw 66 interceptions. Like, you know as a defender that you're going to get the ball thrown to you, but worse, if you're his teammate, you know you're going to give up the ball. And a guy who's accounted for 1/5 of all the pick sixes in the NFL last year is not going to have a brighter future than a former MVP who is Cam Newton.
Yeah, but I think you'll find out.
I'm going to say that, hold on, I'm going to say this. I think that both of you, I can see the arguments on both sides. The health concerns about Cam Newton are real. But the reason why I lean Jameis Winston just by a hair, I think Jameis Winston cares more about football than Cam Newton. And that's been my issue with Cam Newton. How important is football? To Jameis is very important. Marcellus is right, though. The guy is a turnover machine. And, you know, he can maybe he cares too much, and maybe that's why he makes so many mistakes. But if I had to just base on who really cares about football, I think Jameis, because he hasn't had the kind of success that Cam has had. Cam's been an MVP. Cam has had the $100 million contract and has been really well paid. It's all still out there for Jameis. He hasn't proven himself as an NFL player. He still cares about football. I think it's more important to Jameis.
I think Jameis brings to the unknown element. Like, we're so sold on saying how much of a turnover machine that he is, but how good has his coaching been? How much has his development been a part of his career? I think if he goes to the right place, that's what's more important. If he goes to the right place, like if he ends up in New England and they can teach him how to look at the field and see those windows, it may make all the difference in the world. I'm leaning on the fact that we know he can deliver yards. And if we only have to correct one aspect of his game, which is the turnovers aspect of it, I would be more willing to lean towards a guy that's available that can put up numbers.
I am not getting caught up in the fact that Jameis Winston had LASIK surgery this offseason, and all he needs is a great coach to bring out all of his great abilities. And he started off as a #1 pick, just like Cam Newton. If you care so much, show it in full production and care for the football and care to protect it. Jameis Winston is predictable. You know he's going to turn the ball over. Cam Newton has one issue, guys. He wasn't healthy. Other than that, when you saw Cam Newton in full body, mind, and spirit, that was an MVP or MVP candidate. We have never discussed that in terms of Jameis Winston, a lower ceiling, no matter what coaching and what he does in terms of protection of the football.
Jameis has better stats. And Cam's greatest year, he threw 35 touchdowns, only 4 more than what Jameis has done. So I wouldn't get too carried away on saying that he's such an elite, more of an elite talent than Jameis is.
Well, you get me in garbage time situations. You put me under duress. I understand that Jameis has better counting numbers, but making those numbers count, he doesn't have the same impact as Cam Newton has so far in his career.
That's fair.
Anybody want to talk?
If I respond, I'll take it. I'll definitely take it and respond to it. I certainly believe that Jameis in the right situation, and we'll find out when Tom goes to Tampa Bay as well, in terms of protection as to how that applies. I think so. When you look at the amount of times that Jameis was sacked and he was hit and he was rushed, some of those interceptions that we're hanging on Jameis isn't necessarily on Jameis Winston personally. So if he goes to the right situation, again, where there is a running attack or there is a sound blocking scheme that's there and they're able to develop Jameis, I don't see this whole epidemic of him throwing interceptions being the reason why he doesn't have a higher upside moving forward today than what Cam Newton has.
All right, hey guys, let's move to another topic.
Held the ball. It's on him.
Let's move to another topic here. Jadeveon Clowney, no one's interested in him. Maybe he's going to re-sign with Seattle. He's not going to get the kind of big contract he thought he was. The move to Seattle from Houston, I don't think has worked for Jadeveon Clowney. Marcellus, start us off. Are you surprised there seems to be no market for Jadeveon Clowney?
No, I'm not surprised. I think I've always been more of a critic, or certainly less on Jadeveon Clowney than his clout and his reputation suggests. I look at Jadeveon Clowney by his numbers, and I say, being an elite talent has never had double-digit sacks. You talk about a guy who's commanding or asking for $20 million per, and is coming off a sports hernia surgery and only had 3 sacks last year. That's not going to correlate with a suggested asking price of $20 million. I remember when Jadeveon Clowney made the first Pro Bowl in 2016, and he had 6 sacks. And I think it was a lot of pinned-up energy for everyone who was waiting for Jadeveon Clowney to finally explode. And when they saw 6 sacks, they said, hey, that's enough, and voted him into the Pro Bowl. And I'm sitting back remembering when I was in the league, and when I had 6 sacks, I had to have a meeting with my agent and my owner talking about, hey, is everything okay? And now that fast forwards into a Pro Bowl nod. You look at his numbers, you look at the injury concern and his injury history, I think this is about accurate. People are saying bring that price down based on what we've seen, which has not been superior production based on that talent.
I tend to agree. I don't think there's a market for him at the price tag that he's seeking. But I think it's more so based upon him being a victim of a sensational play. So once you get deemed a sensational player, the play that he had against Michigan, he hits the guy fumbles, he picks the ball up with one hand, almost scores. With all of the fanfare and all of the coverage that Jadeveon Clowney has had since then, has really set him up to be a victim of his own sensational play that took place. And take it from one person who knows, they named the play after me, and I never was able to do a LeVar leap every single play, every single time that I got out there on the field. He's going to be judged. He has been measured and weighed and judged on the sensational play. You could add sack to that. You don't necessarily have to be a guy who gets a ton of sacks to be the most valuable guy to the defense. Are you getting tackles for losses? Are you getting pass breakups? Are you rushing the passer? Jadeveon has been very, very effective as a defensive end and had a very productive year as a Seattle Seahawk. But when you look at what justifies paying him the type of dollar that he's asking for, he's ultimately a victim of not getting a ton of sacks, of not getting the sensational play that you've been looking for from Jadeveon since he's been drafted. So I think that it's hard for him to ever live up to the hype that he had in the fanfare coming into the league, and it's showing right now in this market.
All right, great job, guys. We got to get out of here because Darnell Smith is going to be joining us with the question of the day next. We're going to talk about DeAndre Hopkins, Bill O'Brien, and Michael Irvin. Question of the day, speak for yourself, presented by Hyundai.